Once again, good evening. I'd like to welcome again all of our guests tonight. You guys are awesome again, the spirit team, the dance team, the dignitary table, here and here, and of course our the best product in this room, our players. Tonight we have a special guest. Special is a word that's thrown around. It's special ceremony, a special guest, a special this, special sauce, special K. But the person that we're going to be hearing from tonight, Logan Gelbrich, played baseball here from 05 to 08. Was part of that team in 2006 that swept #1 Texas. That really put this program on the map, blazed the trail for the people in this room that are fortunate enough to be here tonight. Logan was with a group of guys that are very close to this day. Logan went on to play professional baseball with the San Diego Padres for a couple of years. At that point, when he decided, or they decided, that baseball was not in his future, that day comes for everybody. Logan has this knack, again, that word special, gift. And that's not a word that's thrown around a lot, gifted, of starting a business. He started, I think, CrossFit on the Bluffs, that we went out there in Santa Monica and worked out. That kind of morphed into the Deuce Gym in Venice. That thing blew up, and he's got a couple more gyms, one in Hermosa Beach and one in West Hollywood right now. He's known all over the world, really. He's a leader in, I wouldn't really say the fitness industry. I know he doesn't want to be painted with that brush. But just the functional fitness, nutrition, and this really gets into what he's probably going to talk about tonight is leadership and championship culture and bringing the best out of people. And Logan, like I said, has this gift, this connection with people that makes his gyms one of the best in the world, like I said. And he's a very sought-after speaker. And especially this group tonight to hear his message. Logan's very special to me on a personal basis, not only coaching him for 4 years and being part of that group where everybody was a leader, and we accomplished amazing things, jaw-dropping things, miraculous things, really. But our relationship, since he's graduated and moved on and I've gotten to know him better, our connection has become real and we've become friends. And I'm proud to call him my friend, and I'm proud that he's an alum, and I'm proud to introduce him tonight to speak to us. Logan Gelbrich. I love him. I do.
Commissioner, all right. How we doing? All right. Made a couple notes. We'll deviate from these very quickly. So first and foremost, just to keep the attention of everyone in the room, my message for the night is going to be relevant not just for the players, but for everyone. And what I'm going to talk about is not specific to baseball, and it's really old, actually. It's been true for a couple thousand years, actually. And what we know about performance and leadership and getting results, essentially, is the most general way to say it. It's something that we've sort of had the answer to for a long time. And so I kind of want to remind the group of that. But first, let's kind of soak up this night. I'm kind of just taking it all in. This didn't used to look like this. I did the math, and so 14 years ago on this night, I was a freshman, and I was selected first in this draft, and there was no lovely lady there. There was no jersey in the photo, but I was selected first in this draft. And we were joking earlier. I was either selected first because I'm a first overall pick, or I was selected first because the best guys on the team were picking the teams and some other shenanigans. You can imagine which version of that story I tell myself. So I was picked first in this draft, and I feel very proud about that. All right. Here's the deal. I want to sort of start this with a question, and we'll come back to this question at the end. And again, this is for everyone. What we're sort of getting to the bottom of here is whether or not you are a victim or you are a leader. And I get a chance to speak to groups and teams and organizations all over the world. And this is an idea that is critically important to what people are doing on a daily basis, whether they're trying to win a championship or they're trying to make a bunch of money or do something special. And so before we start, I want to do a little reflection. So I want you to think about your year last year. If you're a torero, you're thinking about your season. And I don't want you to look at this memory through your own eyes. So we need to do something called disassociation. I need you to sort of look at yourself like you're watching a movie at the end of your season last year. If you're not on the baseball team, you're just evaluating your last year. Put yourself there right now. And what's sort of coming to mind right now are some reflections. Some things went your way, some things didn't go your way, and you're probably trying to now explain your last year. And what I know about your last year, without interviewing you, is some of those things were largely outside of your control. You didn't get the job you wanted on the field. You didn't get the playing time that you wanted. Maybe you got injured. Maybe you were in a relationship. Someone broke up with you. Maybe you got sick. Whatever the thing was, many instances over the past year were outside of your control. And if you are unhappy with the results that you got last season or last year, I need you to think about your relationship with that, because you're either choosing to be a victim about that, or you're choosing to be a leader in this. And I know that the word leader is one of these words like yoga or money or puppies, where we're just like, yes, leader means good, and then we sort of move on. So I don't want to make any assumptions tonight. I'm going to make some definitions for you to help with our conversation. Performance. I don't want to assume that you guys know how performance works, but if you've spent any time in this program, you should understand by now that performance, peak performance, comes down to simply mastering that which is inside of your control. If this is news to you, I need you to sort of plug into what I'm saying right now. In any task that you undertake in your life, any goal that you try to go after, there will be very few things inside of your control and a whole list, a long list of things outside of your control. And what the Stoics figured out thousands of years ago, which is the same thing that this organization talks about, is that your ability to control your outcomes will come down to your ability to master what's in your control. Now, that is very black and white. The problem with this is that we are emotional beings. And so whether you didn't get the playing time you wanted last year, or you got injured, or whatever the thing was that was outside of your control, if you are relinquishing responsibility for your outcomes, then you are choosing to be a victim. If I have anything to offer you guys tonight, it's that the group that I was here with made a decision. And we made a decision early on in our career that we were going to choose leadership. And whatever the results were, we were going to own those results. So now that we know how peak performance works, let's talk about leadership. Leadership is being responsible for the results that are outside of your control. Let's think about that for a second. You're going to be responsible for the outcomes that you can't control. That's a rough job. Everyone in this room would stand in line for the photo if you guys won a national championship this year. Am I right? It's a very easy job to do. But who is going to stand up here at the press conference when you do not win a national championship this year? And I've been in that press conference before with Coach Hill. Now, we didn't win a national championship when I was here, but that was our goal. I would hope that's your goal here today. But the difference that made us great, and in my opinion, we were great, though we didn't win a national championship. We were ranked 4th in the country at the time. We won 43 games and did things that haven't been done since. Unless you're a 10th year senior here, you probably don't have results that feel very good at this time. Let's be clear about that. You are all better ball players, guaranteed, than we were then. But what I observe here is that we have sometimes a common problem, and this is common beyond this room. Let me be clear about that. Is leadership is rare. It's rare because it's hard. So if you're willing to make the choice that we made, what you're doing is you're signing up for the best possible season you can have. Now, I think everyone here is interested in the best possible year for themselves. But with that comes some responsibility. And that responsibility is that you, yourself, will own the outcomes for this season or this year if you're not a ball player. Now, let's take this one step further. I get to do a lot of great work in this sort of field. USD built a leadership school while I was here. I was able to graduate with a degree from there as well. And what we now know about the highest performing cultures in the world is that the culture itself embodies leadership. And the culture itself transcends leadership. That means that you can have an organization or a baseball team that will do the job of leadership for the group. Meaning the group will take responsibility for its results. Now, that means, hypothetically, so let's go to 2008, you're talking about a team that no matter what the outcomes were that year, we were going to point our fingers this way and say that we own and we are responsible for these outcomes. That is a high-performance group. That is a high-performance culture that has an opportunity to maximize its results. Now, the alternative to be a victim, I'll define victim for you. A victim is someone who does not have control of their outcomes. The world happens to them. So if your last season happened to you, and you got those results delivered to you, then what you're doing is you're relinquishing control. You're saying, I have no control on my outcomes. I had no control over the fact that I didn't make that starting roster, or the fact that we had a losing season, or the fact that we didn't win a West Coast Conference championship, or the fact that we didn't make it back to or whatever the case may be. Now, the reason why this path is so popular is because it's easier. If you can point to another person or group of people outside of yourself to explain the outcomes that you have, it feels a little easier. And so what I'm doing here tonight is I'm giving you the facts, black and white facts of how performance works. If performance comes down to mastering what's in your control, and there's always something, then you can choose to own that part of this process. And you will give up this role as a victim. When you're a coach, you learn, I'm a coach of a different kind, not in baseball, but you learn really quickly that you can't want something for other people more than they want it for themselves. It's like one of the hardest lessons to learn as a coach. And I'm very passionate about this program, as passionate as I am about anything. And I would hate for me to want the outcomes like winning a national championship or winning a West Coast Conference more than the individuals in this room. And so since I'm going to assume that we both want these outcomes, I'm going to ask you to choose leadership. And the thing with leadership is it's a teachable skill. I just defined it for you. All leadership is taking responsibility for the results. That means you don't need to be old. You don't need to be good. You don't need to get drafted to be a leader. Based on the definition I just gave you, every single person on the roster can be in leadership. And that means when you guys win a West Coast Conference championship and when you guys go to regional and a super regional and to Omaha, you guys all get to own that. And that's the best version of what this team could be. Now that sounds good, it's just harder. And I hope that you guys will take up that difficulty, that burden. Because you are extremely unremarkable and not rare if you choose the other choice, which is to blame your results on someone else. And when I was a sophomore here, we were in a hotel room in College Station, Texas. It was a tournament we won, by the way. We beat the brakes off of everyone from this moment forward. And we fit 30 guys into one of those hotel rooms that's connected, with the door in the middle. And it wasn't a coach, or it wasn't even a senior and upperclassman. It was like a sophomore who called this meeting, and we decided how things were going to be and how things were going to go. Now, making a choice like that to own our outcomes, to own our results, even the ones that aren't in our control, was like our secret weapon. And I could only hope that for you guys here this season. I want to do a little sort of time travel with you guys. So I need you to imagine, you guys are athletes, so you should be able to visualize this. I need you to sort of remove yourself from this moment and put yourself into the future right now. And your season is over, your year is over, and you're doing some reflecting. We don't need to discuss necessarily how it went, what your batting average was, what your record was, what you did or didn't win, but I need you to see yourself there in the future, taking responsibility for the year that you just had. Whose fault was it that you won all those games? Or whose fault was it that you made that error or whatever occurred? If you're going to be the type of individual who is in full ownership of your results, I don't need to necessarily know how the year goes, but you just gave yourself the best chance possible. Now, if you can see yourself in the future already explaining to your friends and your family why someone else robbed you of the experience that you wanted, you're a victim. And the beautiful thing about sport, and the beautiful thing about what I do now in entrepreneurship, is there's a lot of people playing this game. And there's a lot of programs all around the world with a roster full of people who are willing to do the harder thing that I just talked about. And those are the people that you need to compete against this year. So if you want to save yourself and hold back and be a victim this year because it feels a little easier, that is your choice. But you're literally choosing in a black and white manner to be less productive, to perform at a lower level. And this game is just way too hard to do that. So, bring yourself back into this room, and we should know by now that performance, action can only be taken in the moment, right? There's nothing you can do about last year. And even though we just imagine the future, you can't really do anything about that right now. So here we are, sitting in this room, and you have a choice. Are you going to take up leadership, or are you going to be a victim? Now, if you can say yes to being in leadership right now in this room, let me remind you, this is the hard part, is that this is probably the easiest that's ever going to be. And you're going to have to make this choice over and over and over and over again, and that's what leadership is. It's not a job that you get to decide, write on a piece of paper that I'm going to be in leadership and then submit that and turn it off. You're going to have to choose that again tomorrow when you get punched out on a bad call or some other injustice in your game. And then it's going to get harder than that, because when you drop 2 out of 3 to a team that you should not drop 2 out of 3 to, you're going to have to choose to own that. Or is it coach's fault? Or is it the umpire's fault? Or the rain delay, or the whatever else is outside of your control? And do you see how that is really hard? It's way easier said than done. But if you can choose leadership over and over and over again, you guys have a chance. I'm not promising you anything, but you do have a chance. The alternative doesn't give you a chance at all. And so it's a little bit more difficult, but I would hope that you guys would take up something that has stayed with me for the rest of my life, something that we decided in 2006, and something that allowed us to overachieve beyond anyone's wildest dreams. And again, I can't make you want that, for yourself as much as I might want it, but this program means the world to me, and it taught me that lesson. And I think I'm still reaping the benefits of that idea to this day. I appreciate you guys. And here's the last thing that I'll say. There's a certain tipping point where if the room agrees to do the harder thing, that becomes the new normal. And until it becomes the new normal, it's going to be extremely hard. So if you guys have a culture right now where this feels scary and vulnerable and risky, you're going to need a couple people to be extra courageous to get this thing going. And this message is not just for the players, it's for the coaches and everybody else. Because I've been on a team before where when things go bad, everyone's pointing their finger this way, and it's very powerful. And that secret weapon is something that I hope that you guys will take up. I hear that we may do some questions, but that's all I have for you guys. And I wish you luck this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would Logan now in 2018 say to the Logan in 2005?
Man.
Sorry.
That's good. No, it's fine. I was a real big fan of the Logan in 2005. Yeah. You know, the joking answer is I would just never swing a slider in the dirt ever again. I think I would just tell him to soak it up. I really believe that we had as fun as you could possibly have in college. I really believe that. But I think what you don't know, and this is maybe good for the players in here, what you don't know is this is the best it gets. I mean, do whatever you need to do. Text Chris Bryant, text Sammy Solis, whoever you want in the big leagues. This is the best it gets. And I actually remember, this is maybe helpful, it's 2009 or 8, and I'm on the first place I went was Eugene, Oregon for short season A. And I'm catching on the foul line, and I remember there were a couple games into the season, and I remember looking across the field and just being baffled that I wanted part of myself wanted to sign out of high school and like get right to it. And to spend those years like in those cities with those people doing those things was a pure tragedy, knowing what I know about this experience here. I know I sound like I'm just like doing the propaganda thing, but it does not get better than this. Professional baseball is a transactional deal, and it's fun, and you guys will get to do it and the whole thing, and I hope you play as long as you can. It's a different animal that does not feel like this, and I promise you this is the best it gets. Anything else? Coach?
What's the best book you could recommend to anybody who's into it, wants to be great, will do anything, peak performance, sacrifice?
I talk about this a lot. So the only book that people need to read in leadership in my organization is a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and it outlines 2 basic frameworks of the world. Every single person in this room, in a almost binary fashion, sends and receives information in the world based on like 1 or 2 frameworks. And I need you to hear what I'm saying here. One of which is this fixed mindset, which is where you believe that your traits are generally fixed. You are smart, or you are not, or you are athletic, or you are not, and so on and so forth. And because you believe that, any information that challenges what you believe to be true about yourself is scary, right? So if you believe that you are the best shortstop in the country, and then you come here and find out that you're not, then you're of a fixed mindset, you need to like dodge that information. You need to make the people that say that wrong, right? Like if I believe that my traits are fixed and I have a belief that I am a great athlete, then I come to a place and there's a guy telling me that I'm not as good as I thought. That's scary, so I need to make him a liar, right? And it makes you really difficult to work with, and it makes it impossible for you to improve. The other sort of mindset is this growth mindset, which generally believes that your traits are malleable, which is true. You can get better and you can get worse at stuff. If you're of this mindset, then you can send and receive the truth, which is good things and bad things, negative feedback. You can hear that your backhand is a liability in the middle infield, and you can want to know what is true about that, because selfishly you know that that is insight to how you can improve and get better. Nick McCoy told me about that book, and the way he sold it to me was this. He said, you know when Coach would come into the locker room after we beat the absolute brakes off of San Diego State, Brock? And and he would come in and rip us, and it was like really confusing because we just won. And he'd be like, you know, we are running the bases like hell, and we're not in the moment. We don't understand our out rules, and the effort is horrible. I'm like, yeah, I do remember that. And he goes, you know how, because I think you're like me, you know how when he would say that, you would try to make him right in your head? And I would, and he would too. Yeah, you're right. Like I totally could get out of the box faster, and I was definitely drifting, and the game got fast on second after my third at bat. And I'm trying to make this information true because it will make me a better player. This is the growth mindset at work. Fixed mindset individuals hear that, and they go, who is this fucking guy coming in here after we've won telling me that I'm not hustling? I hustle, right? And he needs to make this message wrong or bad because it would be a reflection of me. And so the best framework you can have in the world, in my opinion, the one that we sort of hire for and cultivate in our culture, is one that just so happens to help you guys in your environment, which is to assume that you can get better and get worse in every single part of your game, and that negative feedback like that is a literal roadmap to a better version of yourself. And so that's why, and it has nothing to do with fitness, but that's why that book is critical to our staff. Any other questions? Yes.
If you are talking about the victim mindset, you have to believe that if you win, then it's someone else's reason too. You can't push yourself and say who did this, who picked best, who ran best, and the basis who did that. If you're a victim, it has to be someone else's fault too. Is that true?
Potentially. Victims are generally cowards, so they would like to take on the good without the bad. But it is possible that someone could be such a victim that they wouldn't own anything in their life. But victims generally are fair weather folks. So when things are going well, they're the most fun person to be around, and they're willing to own those parts, but they will not take ownership of the negative parts. The victim thing sounds like a strong word, and when I've started this whole spiel with it, I probably lost some of you guys to rolling your eyes back in your head. But it's an important word because it's a choice. And I like to learn things from extremes. Okay, so not to get dark, but these lessons about victimhood and the psychology around it are taught to us in the fringes. That's how we learn, is at the highest level of performance. So we talk about like Toyota racing. The pinnacle of performance at Toyota informs how the rest of the cars are made. Like the Camry gets tweaks based on what they learn on the track at Toyota racing. The Toyota Camry does not inform how they do the race. You see how that works? Okay, so fringe level victimhood, so if you're a prisoner of war, people who survive these extreme conditions are people that choose still not to be a victim in those instances. Victims of torture, the Holocaust, all these examples are very common case studies in psychology where the people that survive these things are the people that hold on to something, anything inside of their control. So, for example, being like a prisoner of war, I don't know how we got here in a baseball program, but they will do things like choose to not receive food, for example. Because if everything else in my life is in someone else's control, then like what's the point of living? I'm a complete victim to my reality. But if someone offers me food and I say no, then I have a choice in the matter. And so that one little bit makes them disqualifies them as a victim. And what I see a lot in organizations and in sport, especially when things don't go your way, is that victims are the ones who are pointing their fingers elsewhere. And I just so happen to be lucky to be a part of an organization where that wasn't tolerated. And that's the secret sauce I'm kind of getting at. Anything else? Yeah.
Is leadership your foundation when not just baseball, but life isn't going your way either?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a weird example because, I played baseball, but I didn't really know anything about it. So like the sport, like my brother was really upset when I got drafted by the Padres. I couldn't name really any of the other teams in the NL West. I own gyms now, and I really could care less about like muscles and fitness. Like I hate the whole thing. Personal trainers, like it's just a weird vibe. But when we're talking about getting results, which I am a big fan of, right? I have goals for myself, and you guys have goals for yourselves. The details kind of don't matter, and the principles of leadership are sort of just putting ourselves in the best position to have success. And the way it works in a group is every single person in this room could choose to have the teachable skill of leadership, and then now we can be in an interplay. Sometimes I stand up here and you guys listen, and sometimes someone else comes up here and I listen. That's why the Navy SEALs have a figure of speech ready to lead, ready to follow, right? We can now change roles on the fly. But if you will not take up leadership, then you're sort of stuck. You're only a follower. But someone who chooses leadership can do both. And that makes for a more dynamic group. Anything else? Might not see y'all for a while. Yeah.
Would you argue that discipline is more important than motivation?
Yeah, so motivation is very, very fragile. Motivation is flimsy. Motivation is like an emotion. So you can be motivated right now, 10 minutes from now, maybe you're not so motivated. Discipline is sort of what fills in the blanks. Discipline is something that transcends how you feel. And I mean, hopefully we're already at a point, if you guys are in this room, hopefully we're at a point where your ability to show up or perform at a high level doesn't depend on how you feel about that, right? And that's discipline. Anything else? Thank you.
Yeah. Great job, man. Great job. Great job.